Phosphorus, another macromineral. Sources. Dietary sources include cheese, milk, nuts, organ meat, egg, especially egg yolk, beans, and cereals. Recommended daily allowances. As per daily recommendation of phosphorus in infants 300 to 500 milligrams, in children 800 milligrams, adults 800 to 1200 milligrams, pregnant and lactating women's required 1200 milligrams. Body distribution. Total body phosphorus about 700 milligrams. 85% about 600 grams in bones, 15% in soft tissues, 1% in extracellular fluid, 5 grams found in brain, and 2 grams found in blood. Absorption. About 90% of daily dietary phosphorus is absorbed. Absorption stimulated by parathyroid hormone and vitamin D3, calcitriol. The mechanism is same as compared to calcium. Calcium phosphorus ratio in diet affects the absorption and excretion of the dietary phosphorus. If one is in excess, the other is more excreted. It means suppose the quantity of phosphorus is low, its absorption is more and the excretion of calcium is more. If the quantity of phosphorus is more from diet, its excretion is more and its absorption is less. Regulation by kidneys with respect to parathyroid hormone and calcitriol, vitamin D. Role of kidney. Phosphate uptake is sodium dependent. About 85% of filtered phosphate is reabsorbed by the proximal tubules of kidney. Phosphorus reabsorption is increased when dietary intake is reduced, that is, parathyroid hormone dependent mechanisms. Plasma inorganic phosphorus is a major regulator of 125 dihydroxy calcitriol. Vitamin D3. Increased activity of calcitriol, increased phosphate absorption causes, and decreased activity of calcitriol causes decreased phosphate absorption, that is the directly proportional effect. Now the biochemical functions. Number 1. As a constant of bones in teeth. Phosphorus is a constant of bones in teeth in calcification process. In energy transfer, the free energy produced by metabolic reactions stored as high energy phosphates like ATP, JTP, and keratin phosphate, etc. In acid-base balance. Role in acid-base balance buffer, which is effectively handled by kidney, is a phosphate buffer, a mixture of dibasic and monobasic phosphates involved in acid-base balance. Number 4. In metabolic reactions, especially in phosphorylation and dephosphorylation due to the addition of phosphate and removal of phosphate, in the regulation of activity of certain enzymes, like for example in glycogen synthase. This enzyme involved in glycogen synthesis, its activity is regulated during dephosphorylation. Another enzyme, glycogen phosphorylase, which involved in the degradation of glycogen, its activity elevated during addition of phosphate, means phosphorylation. Number 5. Enzyme action. In enzyme action, phosphate of several coenzymes like NADP and TPP, thiamine pyrophosphate. NADP stands for nicotine amide adenine diphosphate. They involved in enzymatic reactions. Number 6. As a constants of macromolecules. Phosphate group act as a constant of macromolecules like phospholipids that exist in nucleotides ATP, ADP, GTP, DDP, CTP, etc., as well as the nucleic acids DNA and RNA and lipoproteins, as well as phosphoproteins. Now, clinical importance of phosphorus. Rickets and osteomalacia are important dietary deficiency disorders of calcium and phosphate or vitamin D. Look at increased serum level of calcium and decreased serum level of phosphate associated with primary hyperparathyroidism. Increased serum level of calcium and increased serum level of phosphate associated with malignancies, tumors deposited in bones, especially in osteosarcoma, as well as in post-dialysis and renal failure. Decreased serum calcium level and increased serum phosphate level associated with hypoparathyroidism. In hypoparathyroidism, more reabsorption of phosphate occurs and less reabsorption of calcium occurs. So the calcium is excreted more in hypoparathyroidism. Decrease serum level of calcium and decreased serum level of phosphate, both seen in vitamin D deficiency. Clinical conditions. Two clinical conditions are number one, hypophosphatemia, and number two, hyperphosphatemia. Number one, in hypophosphatemia, decrease intake of phosphorus. Decreased intake of phosphorus associated with malabsorption and vomiting. In vomiting, an excess loss of phosphate occurs, leads to a decreased level of phosphate in serum, leads to a hypophosphatemia. Number two, increased cellular uptake, especially in high carbohydrate diet. Whenever a person intake a high carbohydrate diet, more dehydrolysis of carbohydrates occurs. More dehydrolysis of carbohydrates causes a more phosphate utilization, results decreased level of phosphate, and it leads to a hypophosphatemia. Number 3. Increased excretion of phosphorus. Increased excretion of phosphorus associated with diuretics, with increased parathyroid hormone that causes increased calcium reabsorption and increased excretion of phosphorus. Increased excretion of phosphorus results hyperphosphatemia. Now, hyperphosphatemia. Hyperphosphatemia causes associated with hemolysis of RBCs and prolonged contact of plasma with RBCs. Number 2. Increased intake associated with increased intake of phosphorus from diet and in hypervitaminosis. In hypervitaminosis, phosphorus absorption is increased, results hyperphosphatemia. Number 3. Increased release from cells. Disease associated with diabetes mellitus and acidemia causes increased release of phosphorus in excess cellular fluids and leads to a hyperphosphatemia. Number 4. Increased release from bones. In certain malignancies, as well as in renal failure, more phosphorus released from bones and leads to a hyperphosphatemia. Decreased excretion. Decreased excretion of phosphorus occurs in renal failure, in hypoparathyroidism, as well as increased growth hormone. That's all about phosphorus.